In case you missed it, here's Dave and Cheryl's favorite moments of the week.
So there's a new TikTok trend that Gen Z is pushing called the BirdTest.
So here's how it works. It's to help folks decide if a friendly or romantic connection between two people has any sort of longevity. And it's taken off on social media.
Apparently, a lot of people don't know what the bird test is, which I'm sure there's like a better name for it, but that's wild to me because I live and die by the bird test.
Research has shown the single biggest determining factor in whether a happy relationship will last. When one partner says, "Oh, that's a beautiful bird outside," does the other partner respond with something like, "Wow, that is beautiful," or do they blow their partner off and ignore the bird?
What if you don't like birds? What if birds, you're just not a bird person?
Well, I was going to say, I know some people that are afraid of birds. So if someone else pointed out a bird to them, be like, where? And they like duck out of the way.
But that's a reaction. But if you have indifference.
But that's their fear reacting, not to their partner saying something friendly to them. They're more reacting out of, I need to get out of the way of the bird.
So I guess we're in a good place, myself and my wife, because we kind of react to birds. We were sitting in the living room yesterday, as one does, and there was a giant hawk on one of the trees right across the road. And we both got up and we're looking at it. It was spectacular, beautiful bird. And we have a tree in our backyard that's right off of the deck, and we always nicknamed it the green hippie because you know the tree I'm talking about. The leaves grow funny off of it and looks like it needs a haircut, which we have to do every once in a while. In the winter, those little birds, like chickadees or whatever they are, they flock in there by like the hundreds, it feels like. There can be like 50 or 60 of them in that little tree at any given time.
And my dog comes over and scares them all out.
Our dog used to every once in a while. She'd kind of jump at them, but now she doesn't bother with them. If you open the patio door, they'll fly off, and then within 2 seconds later, they fly back. So that's sometimes we look at that and go, well, wow, look at all the birds in that tree. But I don't know if that, you can really use that as a dividing or deciding factor in your relationship. Right?
I would say it also depends. If you're trying to be like, hey, look at this bird. Meanwhile, I got my hands like deep into the dish soap or I'm cooking something and it's like, I'm a little busy over here right now. I can't come to the front window and look at some birds.
I mean, it's about perspective too, right? Growing up in Northern Ontario, there's birds that are here in Southwestern Ontario you don't see there, right? Cardinals. Still even now, you get a brilliant red beautiful cardinal like along the fence. Yeah, both of us will kind of look because we never grew up with that. But now if somebody said, look at that squirrel, I'll be just like, yeah. My mother-in-law still, almost 2 years later from moving here,
obsessed with squirrels,
still talks about the squirrels.
But I also think too, if your partner you might not care about birds, but your partner cares about birds. So if they say something about a bird in the yard, you should at least respond with, oh, cool, what kind of bird is it? Or, engage with them a little bit.
Acknowledgement, that's the big thing for a relationship. If you like to grind your own coffee beans, listen up because we've got some tips that can make it even better.
So a study out of the University of Oregon has found that adding just a droplet of water to your coffee beans before you grinding can not only reduce mess, but it can also improve flavor. So the practice of adding a bit of water is actually called the Ross droplet technique. And they initially started doing it to try to minimize the mess caused when you were grinding coffee because it would create all this static electricity and the coffee particles would sort of scatter all around. So they started adding just in like a little bit of water. I've seen people do like a little mist kind of spray with a spray bottle to get the same effect. And now they have found, though, that in the addition of putting a little bit of water in, actually acts as a insulator. So not only does it cut down on the static electricity, but they say it can improve the flavor of the coffee.
Interesting. So if you're someone that likes to do that, maybe you grind at home, that would be a way to go about it. Because, of course, obviously you can't be adding water into the grinder. You go down to the store and do that. It wasn't that long ago I just got over my phobia of grinding coffee beans in a store. Because when I was a kid, I think I've told you this story before, but I'll say it again. I hit the grinder when I was a kid because, the button's right there at eye level.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know there were still beans in there.
Well, it's not your fault that somebody left them behind. You're supposed to...
It started spitting coffee all over the floor, and I was just like, I panicked and I ran. To this day, legend says that grinder is still going. 3 days into 2024, maybe you haven't set resolutions per se, but maybe you're looking at different ways. Okay, January, reset. What are things that I can do in my life just to be a little happier?
So there's this guy by the name of Jan. He's a best-selling author and has traveled the globe studying how people live long, happy lives. And in a recent interview, he laid out the top 8 habits of the world's happiest people. And this is all based on research and the, thousands of people he's met over the years. So here are the 8 things you can be doing to make yourself feel happier each day. Number 1, get at least 8 hours of sleep. He says the happiest people sleep 8 to 9.5 hours a night.
And number 2, eat a plant-based breakfast. He says stay away from too much meat and dairy in the morning. Sugary cereal isn't great either.
He also says to socialize, and the more the better, and ideally with people you actually like.
Volunteering, maybe with those people you actually like. People who tend to volunteer tend to be happier, more satisfied with their lives, and even suffer fewer symptoms of depression.
Other habits of some of the world's happiest people: take naps. He says it doesn't have to be long, just a quick power nap of 30 minutes. It leaves you feeling more focused, creative, and productive. And yes, that is on top of the 8 to 9.5 hours of sleep every night. Also in the top 8, have faith. It doesn't matter, he says, what you believe in. Studies show people who are religious or faithful are more likely to describe themselves as being happy. Also, he says to limit your TV and social media. Now, the ideal amount is no more than 30 minutes a day of each, which can be kind of tough. But maybe just focus on cutting back a little bit every day. And this one's not doable for most of us. Don't work full time. That also made the list too. Yeah, I wish. You won't be happy if you can't make ends meet. But in a perfect world, they say part-time is better. People who work less than 35 hours a week tend to be the happiest overall. Yeah, go figure. But how are you paying your rent? How are you paying for groceries at the grocery store? The way things are these days, or gas to get around if you have a vehicle. So sure, yeah, you win the lottery like that guy in New York who's won $10 million now twice. 2 years in a row. Twice. Yeah, then I would I'd be really, really happy then. We're asking if you've ever been the victim of a road rage incident after someone we know was telling us a story about something that happened to them over the weekend coming into Chatham, and a little bit of a scary situation involving somebody tailgating and then riding right up on top of their bumper to the point where they thought they were going to get hit. And we also came across this story. A driver was arrested in Arizona after police say a road rage incident was caught on camera. His name is Charles. He's 40, taken into custody after pointing a gun twice at a 19-year-old driver in early December. So apparently the 19-year-old, she says she dropped her siblings off at school, then was, on her way and tried to change lanes. And that's when she saw this other driver speed up and gesture at her. And that's when things really escalated. They pulled up to a stoplight, and she said that's when she started recording. You can hear some words being exchanged between the two, but then the other driver is then seen pointing a gun at her, not once, but twice. So a 40-year-old man felt like he needed to flash a gun and point it at her, a 19-year-old woman, twice. And on the video, you can hear him say, "Did you want to die?" So she said after she pulled away, she panicked, as one would, called her mom. They contacted police, and they were able to track the guy down. He was taken into custody by U.S. Marshals, the Air Force, and local police. So you're like, the Air Force? Yeah, according to court documents, this guy's a first sergeant with the Air Force. He continued his involvement to police, or confirmed, I should say, but he said that he felt the teen was driving erratically. I'm sorry, but if someone's driving erratically, why are you justified in pointing a gun at them? He was asked that by police, and he said he didn't know why. But he also went on to say that he does have PTSD and hypervigilant issues. I will say how many in the military have undiagnosed PTSD, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm not justifying it by saying that. No, I mean, but... Scary situation. That might be why you have these rage issues, but... Why did you feel threatened by a 19-year-old woman in a car who was unarmed, and yet you felt, because she was driving erratically, that you should be flashing a gun at her and threatening her life? In his opinion. And then twice, not once but twice, holding up that gun. I mean, my gosh, it's scary. And I mean, road rage incidents happen no matter where you live, right? It can be south of the border, obviously, where, people have access maybe to more guns. Mm-hmm. But scary in Canada, too. Daniela texted us to say that I was in my car when all of a sudden there was a car behind me, and it kept pushing my car. They were hitting me from the behind in the rear end because I didn't take off right away at a green light. So they were ramming her car, hitting her bumper. Her car. So I said, I texted back saying, I hope you were okay. Were the police involved? She said, I was okay. And the police happened to be at the lights. So he involved himself, and they took over as I pulled away. I was scared. Yeah, no kidding. What a scary, scary incident. But boy, talk about instant karma.
the fact that the police just happened to be there too when this person's road rage took over.
I mean, you do I sometimes even feel bad about honking when someone doesn't take off at a green light. You just do the one honk. Because I don't want to be, I'm not aggressive. I'm just, maybe you reached, because I've had that happen before. I've reached over to grab a Kleenex and you're like, oh, the light's green.
I had an incident once. I don't think I've ever talked about it. I was turning off of Kyle left onto Riverview to go to Blue Water Pools. And so, I had a couple jugs of chlorine in the back seat. You're back to the vehicle. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go pick some up. And, there's no advance there.
No.
And it's terrible.
No, a lot of times that's why I turn down that little side street instead.
And smart.
By the Canadian Tire gas bar, and you go that way instead.
Well, I'm waiting there for the light, and cars are coming through. And then, okay, it goes yellow, it goes red. And this pickup truck on the bridge just accelerates and goes right through the red. And now it's green the other way. So I didn't make an obscene gesture. I just kind of held up my hands like, come on, man.
Like a what?
I turn, go on my way, pull in the parking lot, open up the back of the vehicle of my SUV and go to grab the chlorine bottles when this truck comes flying into the parking lot. And he goes, what was that? What was that? And he's holding his hands up,
It was the guy that ran through the red light.
I guess so, because to be honest, I'd kind of forgotten about it almost by the time I got in the parking lot. And
You'd already moved on with your life, but he clearly had not.
I said, what are you talking about? And he goes, oh, at the lights over there. Kyle, you did this. And he holds up his hands again. And I'm like, yeah, because you ran the red light and it made me go through the red light. He goes, well, I had no time to stop. I couldn't have stopped safely. I'm like, well, that's debatable, but I guess that's where we are.
It's a 50 zone.
He goes on to say, well, it's a good thing that you didn't give me an obscene gesture or it would have been worse. I'm like, I actually remember saying to him, I don't know what to do with that right now. I don't know what you want me to say.
So like he's clearly threatening you then.
He went on to say, I'd better not hear about this on the radio. And
so he
heeled out.
Clearly recognized you then.
Heeled out of the parking lot. This is before Blue Water did their renovations.
Oh, yeah,
so
they got the big
rocks flying all over the place. And normally that parking lot, especially then because it was smaller.
And it was summertime.
You'd always have 7 or 8 cars. No, it was just the two of us in there. And I went inside and I told them the story and they're like, oh my God, I hope you're okay. And I'm just like, I was a little rattled, after that, because that meant that this person had to go down Kyle, turn by the Canadian Tire gas bar, fly around. So what was the plan? If I was going straight, were you going to follow me all the way to wherever I was going? At that point, you know what I mean? So the person had to have been on the lookout for me. That's some major anger issues / road rage issues, right? A little bit of a scary situation. And I think, we've all been there where we've honked at a car or done those kinds of things. We all need to take a breath. We're 3 days into the new year, right? We don't need road rage incidents. All right, I've got a hack for you. That's one of the words they say you should be not saying anymore. So Lake Superior State University of Michigan released its annual list of words and phrases that they say need to be banished because we've been overusing them.
So here's some of the top ones. Hack was at number 1, as you said, but impact, especially as a verb, instead of using the word affect. I think that comes down to people don't know if it's affect or effect.
At the end of the day was number 3 on this list.
I feel like a lot of these phrases came to prominence thanks to Zoom meetings.
Yeah, a lot of politicians too, I think.
Yeah, you wrap up your speech with, well, but at the end of the day, another word that needs to be banished, Riz. It was recently named Word of the Year by the Oxford University Press, but in case you didn't know, it's a shortened form of the word charisma.
Oh, so you say that person's got a lot of riz.
They got a lot of riz.
You know why they want it banned? Because dads like me have been saying it. So the kids are like,
exactly. No, you've co-opted it. Don't like it. Also coming in on this list of words that need to be banished, we've got slay and iconic. Also cringeworthy and obsessed. Because they say people are just using it to describe their regular routine interest. Oh, I'm just so obsessed. No, you're just something you do.
What if you say you're obsessed with your side hustle? All of that is wrong, apparently. They want you to stop using the word side hustle. In other words, your part-time job.
And finally, wait for it. If you're watching a video, we're already waiting for it. You don't need to say wait for it.
And a lot of times the payoff isn't that great.
No.
When they're saying wait for it, and then it ends and you're like, what was I waiting for?
You're like, I'm still waiting.
Because they get more if you're watching the video longer. So that's why that's part of it too. So Merriam-Webster started off the new year asking people on social media which words they think should be used more. And edifice is one of them.
I don't even think I know what edifice means.
It's a great word, though, right? You know what word I think we should be using more? Precipice. We're on the precipice of collapse. I just think that's just kind of a fun word to
You know what,
use.
though? I'm sick of being on the precipice of collapse, personally. And unprecedented. I want to live in precedented times, guys. I'm sick of living through unprecedented times.
Mm-hmm. In the comments, others suggested things like healthy and disposable income. What are those things?
Who has disposable
income? Well, Jerry Seinfeld actually touched on one of these phrases and words a few years ago.
Human beings like to be close together because it makes it easier for us to judge and criticize. We like to give our thoughts, our comments, our opinions. Sometimes we run out of opinions. We make them up. It is what it is a very popular opinion statement. You can't get through a day without somebody going, well, it is what it is. Why are you alive? To just say air words that fill the room with meaningless sounds. I'd rather someone blew clear air into my face than said it is what it is to me one more time. People like to say those kinds of things. It is what it is. You see, if you repeat a word twice in a sentence, you can say that with a lot of confidence. Business is business. Rules are rules. Deal's a deal. When we go in there, as long as we know what's what and who's who, whatever happens, happens, and it is what it is.
Are you signed up to be an organ donor?
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
same. It's just something that's important to me because of some family members that went through some things. And these two stories really shows the importance of doing that kind of thing.
A retired Air Force veteran from Pennsylvania was going through stage 4 kidney failure. So he needed a kidney transplant. And in an extraordinary turn of events, it was another Air Force veteran who stepped up to donate her kidney to him after she saw a sign at a local pizza shop.
When I went to see a nephrologist, and they're like, you're in stage 4 kidney failure.
What we try to do is uplift, recognize, honor people with this sign.
They had told him somebody was in the mix, and I said, well, you know, that somebody was me, and it's done.
We want to let you know you have a living donor. And we're like, I do?
His wife called me, and she says, you saved my husband's life. Chills.
That's powerful, right? When you can say that to another person. And that's not the only story we have about kidney donations. An Illinois man selflessly flew to Florida to donate his kidney to a family friend named Perry. Now, during his evaluations, doctors discovered a tumor in his kidney. Despite his own recovery, Pat now remains focused on saving Perry's life, the man who initially inspired his act of kindness.
My heart said, I know what I'm going to do. So by the time I got home, my brain was convinced, and I talked to my wife, and I started filling out the paperwork at Mayo Clinic. I was just in shock. It can't be cancer. I've been in the best shape I've been in 15 years, and I was on my mission. We want to get him that kidney, and we're going to turn the final pages on the Perry and Pat story and start a new book with our remaining lives. And we just hope that can happen and happen soon.
I mean, it used to be you just sign the back of your license, right? That's not the way anymore. You go to beadonor.ca and you can fill out all the information right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. You go to the website, it says one donor can help over 80 people get back to life.
Beadonor.ca. A school crossing guard in the small town of Tavistock, Ontario is in the news looking for an explanation after she says she was moved from her usual post that she had for 5 years.
So her name is Leah, and apparently before Christmas, she was off on medical leave. So she wasn't working, but she wanted to stop by and her regular crossing location and see all the kids before the holidays. So she decided to have some fun with it. And she dressed up as Mrs. Claus and handed out candy canes to the elementary students and parents that she typically sees every day there.
She looked great. She looked like she was Mrs. Claus from like a Santa's village.
Yeah, it was a great outfit. And, you know, they had a great time. There was photos of the kids all hugging her, you know, excited to see her. And she was excited because, you know, after Christmas, she was going to be going back to work following this medical leave and, you know, going back to her regular position. But then she got a note saying that she'd been moved to a different post.
So obviously she was like, okay, what's up with that? Asked for an explanation. She said, a staff member called me and said it was because I came down to my post as Mrs. Santa Claus handing out candy canes, which was a distraction to the kids and put them in danger. of what? Sugar overload or?
Yeah, they say she felt the situation was safe because she wasn't like in the crosswalk handing them out in the middle of the street. There was another cross guard on duty, and she was like off on the sidewalk doing it. Not to mention, you also looked it up. Tavistock, which is between like Stratford, Woodstock area, 7,000 people is the population.
So one of the 3 stoplights they have? I don't know how many they have, but what is the issue here? I'm sure it wasn't a major rush. It would have been a normal kids and parents that would usually go to that crosswalk.
Yeah. So the mayor, CTV News, reached out to the local mayor there, and he said, well, he couldn't share any details because it's a human resources matter. But all I can think is, who was the Grinch who saw this happen and got jealous and decided to report it?
So one parent said, she typically gives a lot of the kids hugs if they want. A lot of the kids will talk to her about what they're going through, bullying, things like that. One mom even said, my son's typically an introvert, but has really opened up, she feels, because of his relationship with, this grandmotherly type lady, right? So what are we doing? What is the problem here? That she came out at Christmas and handed out candy canes. What is the issue?
You know what's going to happen? I think these parents and these kids are going to go and protest at maybe the mayor's house this weekend.
Who knows?
Try to get her post back.
Go, but yeah, she wants her obviously old position back where she was before, because she developed this relationship over the past 5 years with the kids and the parents, and she's watched them grow up. So in a world where there's so many major issues, really, this is what we're doing?
You've been listening to Dave and Cheryl's Favorite Moments of the Week.